Before I start this video, I have a quick notice for everyone watching. Last video I got a few complaints about the amount of spinning effects I used in my videos. And to that I say, I do apologise, and to show my sincerest of apologies, I have made you this short clip. The Nintendo 64, the only console in the 5th generation to still use cartridges instead of moving on to discs, for some stupid reason. As important as that decision clearly was, the system was rather ahead of its time, and I can't quite see many faults with it. And that's saying something considering that I'm, well, you know, a Sega fanboy, and this is a Nintendo console. In fact, I think I should really redeem that Sega fanboy title, because this Nintendo console actually makes it to the #1 spot on my favourite consoles of all time. Then we're on our home grounds with this dreamy thing. There's not many faults with this thing that I alone could think of, but thanks to our Xbox fanboy Cade and his slight hatred for most Nintendo consoles, we eventually managed to find a few. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. This console was also Nintendo's first attempt at 3D graphics too. Oh, yeah. Apart from the Virtual Boy. Okay, that's not even a console, so I'm not counting that. Right, that's not even a Nintendo product. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. If I see one more thing that doesn't relate to the video, I swear to God, something will happen.
Yeah, he's dead.
The most uncomfortable position I've ever been in.
Do a barrel roll!
The Nintendo 46 was... What? Did you expect me to think of a better joke than 46 for something that's just made of numbers? Really? I mean, I'm smart, but I'm not that smart. Jeez. Well, anyway, it was known as a golden era for the majority of older gamers, being incredibly unique compared to the other major consoles of its generation, those being the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation. And possibly the Dreamcast, but I see this console fitting better in the 6th generation instead of the 5th. Why do I say it's unique, you ask? Well, just look at the thing for starts. The Saturn and the PlayStation have some rather similar design choices for the systems themselves, whilst the 64 seems to resemble the exquisite artistic structure of a posh plastic chopping board. Oh, and take a look at the controllers. Instead of inspiring new ways to play games with the controller's design like the DualShock controller did for the PlayStation, Nintendo took more of an inspiration from Neptune's Trident for their controller. The system was released to Japan in 1996 and to everywhere else in 1997. Compared to every other console in its generation, this was an incredibly late time for the system to come out, as the Saturn and the PlayStation both came out in 1994. The reason behind this blasphemous crime is the 64 itself was delayed in order for it to be released at the same time as Super Mario 64, which is what they wanted as its first launch title next to Pilot Wings 64. Yes, almost every game on the 64 ends in 64. Was, in fact, the most powerful console of its generation. With both of its rivals being 32-bit systems, the 64 was, well, kinda explains it in the name. It was stronger than its rivals in every way, shape and form, apart from sound quality. This was because the system still used cartridges and was one of, if not then the, last cartridge-based system ever to be made. Why does using cartridges affect the sound so much? Well, to be honest, the reason for this is actually quite stupid. It's that cartridges can't hold as much data as CDs can. Oh, and remember way back in the Mega Drive episode where I said the system had a huge amount of colours available? This number being 512 as a quick reminder for anyone who forgot. Well, instead of me just straight out telling you how many colours the N64 had, I'll give you a minute to take a guess. Ready? Start guessing. Done? What did you get? It's a good answer, but I'm afraid it's not even close. You ready for the real answer? Okay, here it is. 16.8 million. I bet a few of you didn't even know that many colours even existed. My point is that the N64 was so powerful for the time that a computer electronics magazine, of which the name will not be said due to copyright reasons, actually stated that the system's CPU rivaled the power of most desktop PCs at the time. Not impressed? Well, what if I were to say that all modern consoles like the mighty PS4 struggle to do that nowadays? That's posh plastic chopping board 1, expensive doorstop 0. The Nintendo, this console has a lazy name, was the place that you would go if you ever fancied playing some old classics with friends. Having some of the best game quality of any console to exist, this beast was the birthplace of many legendary game titles and franchises. You know what time it is. It's list time. Super Mario 64, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, Pokemon Stadium, Super Smash Bros., Banjo-Kazooie, Perfect Dark, Turok, Killer Instinct, Harvest Moon, Donkey Kong 64, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Mario Kart 64 and hundreds more. When it comes to games that appeal to everyone, the N64 was the best. Some games on the N64 are even known today for inventing new ways to play your games, such as Super Mario 64 inventing the player-controlled camera system, and Super Smash Bros. Inventing a whole new genre of fighting game. As I mentioned before, the music quality on the 64 wasn't the best for the time, but that doesn't mean they were all bad. Just poor quality. Here's what I mean. N64 had a rough life. I almost feel sorry for the thing. But then I realised that it's not a person I care about, and instead it's only a bit of scrap plastic that looks pretty. Flashback to 1994, the Sega Saturn had just come out and the PlayStation would follow not too long from now. But no news from Nintendo. Then suddenly, a year later, codename Ultra 64 was announced, and the world seemed, well, slightly bothered. Well, after the release of the Virtual Boy, I can hardly blame Nintendo fanboys for losing hope in Nintendo at this time. The 64 hit the shelves in 1996 and Nintendo fanboys like this buffoon right here couldn't control themselves over it. Get N or get out was the slogan it had, and it sold. Moderately okay. Let's travel a little further into the future where the Sega Saturn had just died and the PlayStation was thriving. The N64 was stuck in the PlayStation's shadow and couldn't escape it. After that, things pretty much stayed like that until the system died in 2003. As I said, it had a bit of a rough life. But wait, even after the death of the system, it wasn't done. In 2006, the N64's popularity was rising rapidly and it was getting more attention than any Nintendo console had ever received, eventually being given the title of the golden era of gaming. It went from being the console that people wouldn't admit to owning over the PlayStation, to becoming a legacy in the world of gaming and fancy plastic kitchen utensils. Well, that's about all I have time for, so if you'll excuse me, I'll take my leave.
Thank you so much for playing my game.